Hello. Hi. My name is Franklin. I'm here obviously with Daniel. We work in the development part of TangoCode. We're going to do the presentation of animations and ReactJS tonight for you. We are very pleased to have you all here. I hope you enjoyed the pizza and the beer. Brand name for Juanjo's Cantina, which is his bar. So that's responsible. So, just as a disclaimer, what you're going to see today here is just a collaborative effort between our design team and development team. We are just the pretty faces here, but they work a lot on it, so I hope you like it. Hopefully they can join us in the Q&A, so you can ask them the questions, not us. So to start off, do we have any designers here? Somebody? No, one, two designers. That's great. That's great. Welcome. The rest, pure development. Do we have any other product? Do we have Scrum Masters? I assume development. How many of you all already are working with React? Okay, great. And how many of you all have time to do animations when you build products? Okay, that's great. Okay, so just to start. So here in TangoCode, as makers of digital products, we have seen a steep rise in the expectations of the consumers. So not so long ago, we will build platforms for our users, and they will be just happy that the platform is doing what they used to do manually, automated. But now they want more. They want more stuff. And why is that? Because our consumers are used to interacting with rich applications daily, as in their daily lives. So, for example, Uber, Slack, whatever that application is. And they demand a lot of us right now as we develop their application that they use in their work. For example, they demand to have the same experience that they have in Uber, in Slack, in Twitter, Facebook, you name it. So there's even now there's soda machines, ATMs that are beautiful to see. So that's how picky we have become as users. That's how picky, how much we demand from the experience when we interact with a digital product. So it's not a novelty that they need better experiences. And no matter if you work for a B2C, like business to consumers or B2B, you are going to be highly demanded, and we all that here, we know that. So that's why we're trying to enhance the experience of our applications. So if you can work for a client, these questions that you're seeing there are pretty familiar. It's like, can you do exactly what like Facebook does, what the mapping Uber does? We see that all the time. Our clients are always asking us to mimic those cool applications, and they don't realize that those guys, they have 100 engineers and they want it in a week, right? But that's a great challenge for us, and we need to start thinking, so how can we build these delightful applications, right? And they're like in my opinion, there are three main categories of how can you delight a user in an application. The first one is usability, which has the efficiency, effectiveness, learnability, all those measurable properties of a user interface, you can say. Then the user experience, which you can say is emotion and behavior, information architecture, all those keywords. And obviously accessibility, which means that everyone can be a user, no matter who they are. So for the designers, I'm really sorry. I know I throw out all these keywords here, and you're probably angry at me because I am going over it. So for the devs, this is like saying space and tabs and all that, only the same conversation. So sorry about that, but bear with me for just the so we can use animations to enhance our platforms in all of these subjects. We can use animations to enhance usability, we can the user experience, accessibility, and you name it. Animations can always make an application better if they are used well. So we'll see what animations are and how to include them in our development and design process, and when and how to use them. So it's not easy to add animations if you're in a B2B company. Nobody's going to pay you to animate something, but you can add them slowly, and we're going to show you how we do it here in TangoCode. By the end of the presentation, we hope that you are able to at least think the next time you are building a digital product, how to use animations and where to use it and what the meaning of the animation that you're using and trying to communicate the user with. So hopefully that's what you take from here. So animations have existed before we even developed applications. It's like even before the internet, so it's nothing new for all of us. And the hardest part is how to integrate that concept of animations into developing professional software. So here at TangoCode, we do it in the base of micro interactions. I may say micro, but it's micro interactions. So what is a micro interaction? A micro interaction are the functional interactive details of a product. So it's the micro things that encompasses and they do the whole experience by adding one to the other. Actually, there's a famous quote from Charles Ames, you know, the guy from the chairs, that details aren't just the details, they are actually the design, and we strongly believe that. So that's the way that we add animations into our designs, into our software, by developing these micro interactions. And the word micro is not because they are not important or because they are non-existent or really small, as I obviously said, but it's because they should be simple, brief, and effortless. You shouldn't be conscious that it's there. So we can go to the next slide, and this is the anatomy of a micro interaction. If you want to go a little bit more technical, so micro interaction has a trigger, which is an event or something that happened. That is the initiation of this interaction that's going to happen. There are rules. The rules is what's the goal of this micro interaction? What I'm trying to do by doing the following animation or whatever the micro interaction has. Also, the rules has like a lot of other details that you may want to include. But what the user perceives is the feedback, and there's also loops and modes, which that's even more technical, which is a branch of the rules to see if the micro interaction repeats always or it's just a one-off or stuff like that. So having this basic knowledge, we can go to the demo, which is the prima donna of this. And for the demo, we couldn't show a client's project. Basically, there are some restrictions. Some clients may not like it that we're showing their product, and also we may have to onboard you in a lot of context to just show you 2 or 3 interactions, or actually 5 interactions that you want to see. So our design team and our development team, they came up with the music spot, which is an application we created here at TangoCode, is to buy and sell tickets for concerts in Chicago. So it's not live yet, but it can be. Hopefully we make a product out of this. So you're going to see the application, Dan is going to show it, but it has like a grid of music and a search functionality on the top left. I don't know if in the TV you can see it. You have a login because you can have your tickets, etc. It's a very easy application to learn. So that's what our demo has to be. And Danny will share a little of the technical details.
Okay, hello everybody. So in this presentation, we're going to basically talk about animations, and every animation that you're going to see here is going to be done in CSS, or it's going to be done with something built on top of CSS. Okay, so just to be a brief introduction, I don't know if how many of you are familiar with CSS. Okay, okay. Have you done animations with CSS so far, or okay? Perfect. So just a brief introduction for for everybody that may not have experience with CSS and in particular animations. Basically, the way you animate with CSS is through properties. I'm going to highlight 3 properties for this. The first one is the animation property itself. You can assign that to a class, to an element, etc. And that basically the animation property points to a set of keyframes. Okay, so keyframes are basically a way to, it's a very powerful way to define your animation. You can define actually step by step how your animation is going to behave. In this example, we just do a simple animation from to, so we basically, we're going to transform, we're going to move an element Yeah, and it's going to start from minus 1,000 pixels from each polygon, so basically going to be out of the screen, okay? And it's going to come down animated to their actual position. That's what the transform now means, okay? So it's going to start with away from its position, and it's going to come to it. But you can also, in keyframes, you can also do things like use percentages. So basically, in an amount of time, let's say your animation is going to take 2 seconds, you can actually say, you know, the first 10% of the seconds I want this to happen, and the other 20% this other to happen, and stuff like that. So you can be very detailed on the animation you want to build. You have to specify basically the set of keyframes, that's the fading down. It might look a little bit different than the real CSS because I'm going to explain later, but we're using styled components, which is a way to integrate CSS inside React. So it might look a little bit different, but that's the whole idea. So animation points to a keyframe, you specify a time, so the animation is going to take 1 second, and optionally you could also specify a delay, so you can say, you know, I want this animation to start in 1 second, 2 seconds or something, okay? So you can be very specific. Another thing you can use is transition. So basically transition lets you specify how you want to animate the change of a property, okay? So for example, in this case, whenever we change the opacity of our element, we're going to animate that opacity change in 800 milliseconds, so almost a second, and with an easy in out, okay? So you can actually specify to translate all the properties if you want to, and with the same animation, or you can specify which properties you want to check for, and basically when it changes, let's say you do a hover, so if you hover over and you want the unhover the opacity to change, then you can, this property will be triggered, and because the opacity change, it will trigger and it will animate the transition in 800 milliseconds. Okay. And finally, transform. Transform is a set of functions that you can use. You can use scale, skew, you can use rotate, and things like that, and you can basically, actually I'm using here one translate as well, so that I like to move the element around. So you can basically animate those movements of your element. Okay. So if you wanted to rotate, but just don't rotate right away. You want to animate that, you can use the transform. Okay. So that's just to put a little bit of context on what we're going to use in terms of CSS.
Okay, perfect. So now that Danny told us how we're going to animate, I want to do a brief explanation of when to use animations and which animations we're going to use in each scenario. So we came up with these 5 categories in the Music Spot app, and I'm going to go over it right here as a really fast, and before each demo we're gonna go in detail, okay? So the first one is draw the user's attention. This is when you need the user to do something immediately. So you use this type of animation that we're gonna see in that moment. To eat the weight, I think it's not very well the title, but it's to make the weight less frustrating. To discover new features, discover new ways of interacting with the application. Contextual transitions to show information depending on the context that the user is triggering, and to delight users. That's the final scenario. So in these scenarios, let's start with the first one, draw the user's attention. And so this animation, we can use it when we need the immediate attention from the user, when they need to, for example, correct an error, or when they need to do an action that is imperative, that we will have to break the user flow. Imagine they're trying to post something in Twitter or your application, you have to enter a form, but there's something wrong that is going on, and they need to correct that before continuing. It's very effective because you get the attention of the user, but if you use it too much, you're disrupting the experience a lot. So it's an animation that you have to use with a little bit of care, and only with the intention of when something wrong happens, or when something really good that you need to tell the user happens as well. So then he can show us how he implements it.
Sure. So let me actually first. Let me add some context to the application that we actually built for this. Let me collapse all this. So what we built is basically a very basic Redux React application, or React Redux application. Okay, are you guys familiar with Redux? Most of you. Okay, so a very popular framework. It allows you to actually manage the state of our application. So it's not easy to share data across the application. Okay. What you see here, for example, in the structure of the, well, you have the typical boilerplate files that come with the create React application boilerplate, and then we added the whole state thing. So you have actions, reducers, selectors, typical things that you use in a Redux application. We're not going to dig into much of the Redux because the presentation is mostly about animations. We might point out that some things came from the state at some point, but not necessarily get too much into it. Just want to give you an overview of what this code is going to be. By the way, this code is going to be published after the presentation in our GitHub, so you can download it and play with it as much as you want. Then in the component section, you have all your components. Again, this is a Redux application, so every folder here is kind of like a component. So we have the login, which is the first screen, and then the other screen is the main screen, but that screen has a lot of things, so we actually break it into the header and the artist, which is the list of the artists that you will see. So we can break it down into components. Every component, as in any Redux application, has the typical container, which is where all your business logic will go. Okay, so this is usually a class, you have a constructor, you have functions, and eventually you will have obviously a render event. Also, here's where we usually put the life cycle, like component will mount, etc. Then we have the presenter, which is basically just a screen. Okay, so in the screen you will see just basically JSX. Sorry. And it's basically a functional component. We usually try to keep it that way, so that we force to use all the business logic into the container. And then one thing that goes with the presenter is the style. So in every folder you will see also styles. So here's where we use style components. Are you guys familiar with style components? No, not really. Some of you are. Okay. So style components is a great way to integrate CSS with React, and at the same time isolate all the business logic of the application from the styling. Okay, so you can put in style components all the definitions for your styling, like colors, fonts, whatever. Okay, and then in your presenters will be mostly just the layout of your application. Okay, so for example, what is a style component? So instead of creating a div that is going to be the container and have all the properties here, I could actually create a style component called container, and here I put all the CSS. So it's a little bit different than the init styles that we use in React. Actually, here you can actually use the CSS notation, so you don't have to type like this, you know. You can actually type it like in CSS. This is very helpful for us because in our process, we rely a lot in the UX UI team, and in most of the cases they actually build the CSS for us. So for us, it's a very easy way to just merge the work they do, paste it in here, and then we can just focus on the presenters and containers, which is the part that we usually, as developers, we usually manage. Okay, this presentation actually was done exactly that way. So Colton, he's right there. So he actually built all the CSS, and I just pasted it here. So I didn't want to take credit for it, Colton. Okay, so the idea is very simple, right? So we define a component just with the properties that we want, and then we use it in the presenter. Sorry, maybe this presenter. Yeah, we just use it in this presenter, and it actually helps us to isolate all the styles. You don't see colors, you don't see fonts, anything here. So it's much more clear. And actually, by adding a name to each of these elements, we can actually follow the screen much easier, right? So we know this is the container, so there's a form, you know, things like that. So it's just much easier to follow. Every so often we'll use a div, of course, but not always. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit of the context of the application, how it's built. Okay, it's a React Redux application, and all the styling is done with the style components. Now, actually going to the demo, to the actual demo. Franklin was mentioning this is the draw attention category. So what we want to do is here is show you a little bit of how we will present an error to the user. Okay. First, I want to show you without animation, and then with animation, so you can kind of tell the difference and hope you like it better. So let's say I type whatever, you know, and then I try to log in, and boom, the message is right there. Okay. So yeah, they can figure out that, but let's see with animation and see what happens. So in the styles, since I didn't want to risk it too much, what I actually did is just comment the animation. Okay. So here I'm using the animation property. Remember I mentioned that before. So this animation is basically pointing to a keyframe. Okay. So a set of keyframes where I can actually go to the keyframes. Keyframes come from the side component as well. So I can actually define my keyframes here. So I'm gonna say how I want this animation to work. So again, this is the example I was showing in the PPT. It's going to start out of the screen and it's going to come down animated to the position that it should be on. Okay. So let me go to here. Let me actually type something wrong and so now it's animated and you kind of cut your eye a little bit better. Okay.
Perfect. So this is that animation was to draw attention. If you see the movement from the top, it's more noticeable than if you just display the error. So let's see what we just saw here. If we took it to the anatomy of the micro interaction, what just happened? The trigger was an error in the login. The user typed the wrong credentials. The rules, the goal is to get the user's attention as fast as we can so he can solve the problem. And we have to show an animated error. And here in the rules, it can be like it has to come from the top, it has to be red, it has to go, all those details. We didn't put it in PPTs just because not to clutter it. The feedback is the error spacing from the top. That's what you see, that's what the user perceives. And the loop, this happens only once per error. So there's no loops and there's no modes in it. So why this animation works? I'm going to go design nerd here, so just look at me lost if you want. But the way our eyes work is we have a lot of definition when we focus on a really small space in our visual space. We have definition, very good definition in a small space, and very blurry on the sides. But that blurriness also helps us to detect movement. So why this? Because of the evolution that happened when we were in the Stone Age. We needed to see movement because we were focusing here and a lion was coming, so we needed to run, so we don't get eaten. So thank you, Mother Nature, and all those things that happen. Now we can have ads and notifications coming from the top, and we will get distracted all the time. So yeah. Anyway, that's the theory behind this animation. Why the movement has to come from the sides or not where you are focusing. The next scenario where animations help us in the micro interactions is the weight. So it's very common for us developers, designers, and people in tech to forget that our users may not be tech savvy. So they don't know a lot about technology, maybe, and they're using a website and they don't know all the things that happen behind the scenes. They press a button to load all the clients, and maybe those clients are in a server that are like 2,000 miles away, that has a database that are other 300 miles away. That's an Amazon work server site. And then they come back, all that round trip. They expect the interaction to be almost instant, right? But it's impossible for us to be instant, or it's very hard for us to make it instant. And one of the worst things is that when we develop web applications and even mobile applications, we don't control the weight. It depends on the internet connection that the user has. So in these scenarios, it's very important to use animations to ease this weight, to make this weight less frustrating. And Danny will show here how this will look with and without animations.
Okay, so again, just to show you really quick, we're going to now actually log in. Okay. And so now basically we go to the site and we have no idea what's going on, right? So things are loading, but we have no idea that things are loading, and it looks like I broke the demo, but it's not. So boom, it shows. So that's not really good, right? Probably I went to another site because I thought this thing wasn't gonna work. So again, what we can do is just uncomment the magic, and I just need to find the magic. Okay. So I'll explain a little bit of code later. So basically, I'm just going to add some nice components to tell the user that something is going on. And now I see that the application was meant to have a bouncing ball somewhere there. So I can see that something's going on. Okay. So again, we exaggerated the demo so we can actually see the bouncing ball, but so it actually tells you that something's going on. I'll just show you really quick the code. So here's where we use properties, for example. So this is very cool because I can, if it's loading, it's in a state of loading, then I show the ball. And the good thing about this piece of code is this component actually gets created only in those situations. So it doesn't affect the animation because if it's loading, then it creates the component, and the component is using a property to animate when it is created. There's no other trigger for this component that the fact that it's being created. Okay, so this works very good with this condition. So let me actually go into the animation that makes this happen. So here is actually the bouncing ball. I should look here is keyframes. So these are the keyframes that basically made the animation work, and here's the animation start. So the ball itself, which is one of the components here, this one, it's associated with animation function, and again, there's no trigger for this, but the fact that the animation was actually, the component was actually created, and it has an infinitive, so it always keeps bouncing or moving or something. And I am associating the keyframes to it, so here's the very detailed keyframes of everything that happens during that animation. Again, thanks Colton for writing all this code for me. Okay, so that's basically how we use animate in this scenario.
Perfect. So again, we can go to the next slide to see the trigger and a synchronous action. When a synchronous action happens, we want to let the user know that something is going to happen to hold still for us. And then animated circle, and it's an infinity loop. So this is, here we have a loop, it's always happening. So the micro interaction continues until the data is there and the loading is out. So this is how the micro interaction of this works. So there's loading indicators and progress indicators. There are different things. We may not know it, but loading is, we don't know how long it's going to take, and you don't know more or less how long you have been waiting. In the progress indicator, you have a bar, usually, or you have like screen or whatever, and you know like percentages, or you know like it's going to take this amount of time. Usually, when you don't know the time, you use loading. When you know the time, you use progress. But sometimes there's a good amount of studies that say that people are often they're prone to wait more if they're shown a progress indicator than loading. A loading indicator, after 10 seconds, you're starting, oh, this is broken. With a progress indicator, you can wait even for a minute if that's shown to you. So we know line is bad, but if you have a long wait that you cannot control, you should use a progress indicator and just fake the 100%. Line is bad only if they caught you, so that's how you have to learn. The next, so that will be the is the wait scenario. The next scenario is to discover new features or to discover how UI components operate. These are it's a very interesting use of animations. I personally think it's the best one because it's not very intuitive to use animation for this. When you have a UI component that you need the user to learn how to use it, animations are fundamental, or they can serve a really good goal into this. Danny can show how we did this in the music spot.
Okay. So going back to music spot, the place we use the animation is in the search bar. So here basically there's a couple things going on here. So if you hover over the animation, you see you already see an animation that kind of tells you that you can click there. Then you can click it and it actually opens, and you can start typing your favorite band, like Pink Floyd, something like that. Okay, and you search something for it. The search doesn't actually trigger anything; it's just for the animation. So again, so there's a couple animations there going on there. Let me show you a little bit of the code how this was written. So let me go to the header, enter. The search box is this. The one that actually makes it happen is the search box, this component. So let's look at inside these other components. And actually the search, the search box here. So these are the default values, okay? But now we actually have a trigger. So these are the default properties, like when nothing is going on. But if it's hover, then we change something, okay? And on focus, we actually are able to animate. This is actually not a div, this is an input, so that's why we can actually focus on it. So that's very cool, and it actually expands and shows us the actual input. Okay. Let's see here. Here's the transition. So basically, we have a transition also that changes all the properties that we need to change to animate. Okay. So obviously, the transition is triggered by the different pseudo classes like hover and focus. So those change some properties, and then the properties don't just change, they don't just appear, they animate because we are setting up transitions to make them smooth and nice to look. So yeah, this is how we actually did the search box.
Perfect. So what was going on in the Discover? As he said, there's two things that happen. And these two things, they work, there are two micro interactions separately. So there are two animations, but we treat them as two different micro interactions. Yeah, micro interactions. And each of them, it has a different goal. The hover one, the one that when you put the mouse on top, it shows like a dark shadow. That the goal of that micro interaction and animation is to let the user know that that element has a special behavior, because nothing else in the UI behaves like that. So when you hover on that, you have like okay, something's going on here, probably a further interaction can be executed in this item. Also, the way the UI design was done is a rounded input, is it? So it's a rounded input. So that's also very familiar for the user as a button. So these two things aid to the user that this is something clickable. And when you click on it, it expands and transforms into the search input. So a feature that wasn't there is now there by just focusing the input and letting the user be ready to type. So this was a complex animation to do. It's two micro interactions with two different animations, and the different goals in each of them. We are almost in the last one. We're in contextual transition. So contextual transition is fancy words to just say showing detail, showing information in base of a context. This is a pattern used everywhere. Is when you have a list of items and you want to select one item, you select the item in line, so the user can see the information in the context of the list. We try to do this for the music spot, and then I can show you how.
Okay, so the animation, basically, let me show you quick the animation. So as we were saying, basically what we want to do is if you hover over the different artists, you will see the details about it, and you can actually find tickets or things like that. Okay, so there's two animations going on here actually. The one is the one that expands the item, and the other one is the one that makes that appear, the details appear. Okay, so let's see a little bit how that's done. And that's in the so again there is let me close this, and well, the core artist is the one that does it. So I think it's in the other file. I lost my code. Sorry about that. Artist. Okay, sorry. Too much lines. So basically, the container itself. The container is the one that actually holds the whole item. Okay. So the container itself, basically, we add a trigger on hover, okay, and very easily, the only thing we change is the flex basis. So basically, just expands to 40 EM, okay. We do a time of 1,000 milliseconds, easy in out. Okay. So basically, what happens here is that as soon as the hover is triggered, we change this property. This property is assigned to a transition, so it triggers animation. Okay. For the detail. We actually say on hover of the container, if you have a detail, or the detail inside, change the opacity to 1. Okay, so the original opacity of the detail is 0, so you can see it. and you change it to 1, and it also has a transition of opacity, so it says, okay, so don't just change the opacity, animate the opacity in a certain time. Okay. So it was actually quite easy.
Yeah, exactly. When we were looking at this animation a couple of days ago, this animation looks really complex, but if you just see the code, it's one property of the flex the flex box, yeah, and that's it. So that was pretty cool. So again, this is the trigger. You just saw all this and this PPT. One little concept of these animations. These are two animations, as Danny said, and they both are choreographed. So they are not at the same time, because at the same time they will look odd if you are like disappearing the first one when disappearing the other one. They are triggered at the same time, but they have different durations. So with that, you can see the actual interaction very smooth. You don't have multiple details showing at the same time, which was one of the things that we try to avoid. Also, by showing the detail on the animation when it's expanded, is when you actually apply the pattern of the contextual transitioning. Is you show more information. If you're not just expanding the picture, wouldn't be enough to using this pattern. So you can use this when the code is up. We can go to the last one. And the last one is the most risky to use. So this is delightful animations. Animations just for the purpose of the light are the most dangerous to use, because they are just animations because they're nice. And animations because they're nice is really hard, right? Because what's nice for me is maybe not nice for Danny, maybe it's nice for you, etc. So it's very subjective. So also, it's like, when is the limit? When is the limit of putting nice animations? I can put my whole application animating all the time, and that may be nice for me, but it's not very usable, and you start going against other usability principles. So it's very, if you do this right, it's a very nice tool. It makes the experience much better, but do not overdo it. This is like kind of the learning here is that we tried a lot of stuff. Go simple, try to delight in small interactions, but not overdo it. It's always risky to use this kind of animations. Danny, can you show us?
Okay, so one animation used for the category of the light is, so we go actually inside, I'm going to go inside Colton. So for Colton, if I really like that band, I can just click like, and we use that little animation to make it a little more nicer. Sure. So if you didn't see it,
wow.
There you go. Okay. All right. Let me show you the code. This one is pretty big actually. So if I go to artist and styles, this one has a trick, a key box. So the control behind that heart is actually a checkbox. So that's why we control if it's checked or not. You don't see the checkbox obviously, but if you click on it, it's clicking the checkbox. So that box is the checkbox is this khaki box, and so you have a lot of things. If it's checked, do this. If it's not checked, do that, etc. And based on that, we basically animate. This was a lot more code. Actually, can show it here. So all inside this heart symbol is basically the heart, and we even use like SVG and pads to build it, or Colton use SVGs and pads to build it. So it's a lot more complex animation, but it really gonna delight the user. Why not? So yeah, I don't want to go into too much details of this, but again, if you want to play with code, it will be uploaded.
So the delayed part of this animation is, instead of just filling in the outline before filling in, is obviously you're not going to see confetti coming out of the screen, but it's something that makes the whole interaction much smoother and nicer to interact. Again, it's a very risky type of animations to use. And if you've seen the animations that we show, the other four scenarios, all of them contribute to make an application more delightful. The contextual transitioning, the ease of weight, everything makes a little bit more delightful the application. So at the end of the day, everything contributes to this property. You don't have to add any delight animation if you have others animations, but make sure that if you don't have, you can add one over there, one sparkling. I say this sparkling over there. So to recap what we see tonight, we started on how to include animations in the applications. So the process we use here is by the micro interactions that I mentioned a lot. Sorry. Also is then what a micro interaction is, how to conceive a micro interaction, how to put it in a project, for example. When to use these animations and why. The reason for each of these different types of animation. There are a lot of others, and you all can come up with each use case. And how to use it in ReactJS by applying the style components and CSS that you want to. So we wanted to share key learnings that we have here in TangoCode by using this approach. So the first one is movements draw attention. That's the first animation that you saw. Is like if you use movement, people are going to catch the eye. Be careful not to overuse it, because then you're distracting too much of what the user should be doing, which is using the application to the goal that is intended. Don't overdo it. This is in the light. In any animation, don't bounce it eternally. If you have a banner or anything, do simple. Do optimize it. You have to test it. Not invest time in animations. The better animations are the animations that people spend more time on it. Like everything that you want to be like nice. We use CSS for performance. CSS is one of the most inexpensive ways of doing animations. You don't have to handle any re-rendering of components to animate. You don't have to do any JavaScript. It's pure CSS3, what you've seen tonight. Don't animate anything at the same time. This is because of performance. If you animate 2 or 3, it's okay. If you animate 5 things at the same time, imagine a dashboard with a lot of graphics, it gets stuck. That's because of the processor has to do a lot of things at the same time, and you want to avoid that by putting a delay, doing the concept of the choreography, or just animate what the user sees before the fold, and after the fold, you animate when the user scrolls. Any of those tricks work. Network activity can cause lags, the same as because of the same thing of don't animate everything at the same time. When you're getting network requests messed up with the thread of the animation, then you're seeing laggy animations because of that. Again, if you want to animate on load, just do a 300, 400 millisecond delay on your animations, and it will work much better. So you load everything, and the first time you load the page, you get all the requests out of the way, and then you start the animation out there. And the most important, and this is not only for animation, but anything that you work, get feedback as soon as possible. Even do a video, send it to someone, so you're not victim of the what's nice to me is not nice to him, etc., etc. So those are the learnings, and we are open for any questions or complaints, compliments.
How many frames was the heart?
Without microphones.
How many frames was the heart animation like? How many different parts did you have to put into that?
It was a lot. I mean, we actually have 2 paths that we draw. So it's actually multiple animations going on there. There's not only one. I'm not sure I understand the question. You mean frames like keyframes, or?
I saw the coordinates going from here to here to here to here to here, like that.
Yeah, it's a ton. I didn't count it, so it's I don't know.
It's a whole part of the SVG.
Yeah.
I can.
You can show the Coellar.
Let me see.
And the 2 animations that you mentioned is one is the path and the other one is the field.
Is that hand-drawn, or?
What's that? Sorry.
How did you guys get that? Just an outline control?
Usually they're like. You want to take it?
No, go ahead.
Usually you can export, like if you have Illustrator, you can export the SVG and it will give you the path. So
Yeah. It's okay. That's
any vector design tool will export it to SVG.
It's hard to show it here, but all these are the coordinates, so for the path, so it's a ton.
There's one caveat. There's other animations that they do that with frames. That's why maybe they do like the heart in different states and they just show the frames. Maybe that was the.
mentioned at the beginning that you could use animations to improve accessibility. Is that true? Can you give an example?
Usually, depending on which is your audience and which is the accessibility you want to improve, you want to turn on or to diminish the animation. So that's what I was trying to refer. For example, accessibility not only because of something impaired on the user, but if your user is low on battery, you should cut your animations because you're going to use more resources. Anything like that, anything that you can improve, you should take care of your animations in that sense.
Thank you.
Have you ever run into any browser compatibility issues when adding animations to projects?
All the code we did here is up to CSS3. We haven't fully tested it for legacy browsers or things like that, but I guess CSS3 whatever they are supporting right now, but we didn't really test it like all browser compatibility.
Just wondering if you use any other libraries or frameworks besides the components, like I've heard of Active-IDE or some other libraries to use with React.
We have played with other libraries. React group transitions is one of them. Lottie is another one. It's kind of like the same approach we take a UI design. Like we analyze animations in the same approach that we take UI design. We don't use for UI. We don't also use any UI libraries like Material UI or things like that because our designs are very specific. So we actually take that into the animations itself. So we try to just stay with CSS so we have all the flexibility that we can. But we can play with other libraries, and if in the project it makes sense, we probably use it. Yeah.
Considering the amount of animation that you're doing, even before React, what was your kind of mode of animating? Was it more CSS or were you more JavaScript oriented? And what has React really done to what your design style is with animation?
I'm looking to take the question, but we always use CSS. I mean, it is not, this is a React group and we show in the animation plus React, but yeah, before React, we also use CSS purely.
Yeah, and as the process, we are not like a game company, so animations for us is like what the plus that we give to our clients, a little bit like the lightfulness and all the other things that we saw. So we try to add it in that sense. It adds to the experience, we try to add it, but it's not compulsory for us. And in the terms of ReactJS, the style components library, that helped us a lot into using the pure CSS3, and even I think we wanted to put CSS4 at some point.
Yeah, Colton, you were playing with CSS for a little bit, or? Yeah, some of it. But the style components, as Danny showed and mentioned, it lets you encapsulate all the CSS, and you don't deal with that when you're dealing with other stuff in your presenter containers. So I think that's the main advantage, the style components.
So you guys planning process for CSS, do you do code Photoshop document, also the animations, how do you plan out?
I don't know if the design team wants to join into this Q&A, but I can explain the process if Colton.
I usually find something that I've already. Yeah, sure. I usually find something that is close to what I have in mind. I mean, there's a lot of resources online, so you can just find, I don't know, anything you want. Example for the SVGs that we used for what? Yeah, for a heart. Exactly. And then find what you're looking for, and I mean, you know some CSS, you can break it down and rebuild it in your own image. And yeah, that's how you'll figure it out.
Yeah, on the process is from Sketch, right? Just to finish the question, from Sketch you go to Copen. In Copen you do the code, right?
Sometimes I'll just go right to
Beam.
we use TangoCode, right? Oh well, yeah. Zeppelin is that collaborative tool that we use. It makes the CSS for you.
So that's a cool thing to share. With Zeppelin is so Colton gives us the sketch, he puts it in Zeppelin, which is another tool. Zeppelin actually takes the layers of Sketch and builds the CSS for us. So we actually copy that into the second one. So we copy and paste.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. Sometimes at first I was a little bit bitter because it generates really good CSS, but it just saves me time and it saves you guys time.
I hope the question was answered. That's it. Thank you very much. And I think there's another presentation coming up. So, thank you.